Hi, Jeff.
Hey.
Come on in.
All right. Thanks.
Here we are.
Cool. What a beautiful place. Wow.
Thank you.
What is that?
That is a rocket stove. You don't see those real often. You put the wood in here. If it were winter time, we'd have a fire in there. And then the heat goes up around this barrel and then back down and then through a chimney that's buried in this clay. And then that chimney turns and comes back this way and goes up there. And by the time it leaves the house, it's about 100 degrees. In other words, it heats the bench and the house. It can get pretty warm, and then of course it heats the house, and especially at night, you don't have a fire, but the heat will radiate off of that clay.
Does it take a lot of wood that you have to stick in here?
Less than it would in a regular wood stove, but it still takes wood.
Yeah.
You gotta load it.
That's kind of a small hole. I guess you can't put very...
No, no, it's gotta be split fairly small. So, yeah.
Where did you get this idea from?
Internet, YouTube.
The things you can find.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, this is the animal rights office in here. So this is my desk and just basically animal rights stuff. This is where I do, you know, my blogs and websites and communicate and all of that sort of thing. So, and then that banner up there we use in a lot of tablings and that sort of thing. So it's just all those wonderful things for all beings. Freedom, truth, love, joy, ahimsa for all beings. And
safety.
Safety.
And then you have an award over here?
Oh yeah, that's Henry Spira Grassroots Animal Activist Award. I got that in 2014, and our Mighty May got one the same year. So that was an honor to be with her, that's for sure, because she is an amazing person. Everything else is just an ordinary house.
Beautiful colors and nice windows.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we like to live outdoors, and so the more windows, the better. And nowadays, I mean, in the summertime, in the spring, we can just leave the doors open in the windows and everything, and just love it. Nice. So, and then we can see outdoors. That's the main thing. Be able to feel the fresh air and see the beautiful scenery.
It's like you're living outside when you're inside.
Yeah, that's the goal, really. But in Kansas in the winter, you can't really live outside, so you do have to have walls. I'm Judy Carman. I'm an author. I've written some animal rights books. I'm co-founder of the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, just a grassroots activist, basically. I went vegan, I think, in 1997, somewhere around there. And the reason was because of the animals. I had been vegetarian for about 20 years before that. Wow. For the animals, but I hadn't collected all the information. I didn't know all the details. I certainly didn't know about dairy and eggs. I was like so many vegetarians. It seemed like that was a kind of a general thing to do, not understanding what's behind the scenes at dairy farms and egg farms. But one day I thought I was starting to feel things, and I wasn't that connected with a lot of animal rights people at the time. I was in Lawrence, Kansas, and there wasn't a whole lot going on. There was a group in Kansas City, and it was called People for Animal Rights, and I was learning from them, and I was also learning from PETA at that point, and some of the other big groups that were forming. And so it was starting to get to me. So I thought, okay, I'll just find out on my own. And I was totally into organic, so I called Organic Horizon Dairy on the phone. And this is just kind of before we had computers and all of that way of researching things. So I actually called on the phone and I said, now, what do you do with the babies when the babies are born? And he said, oh, we just take them away from the mothers so they won't bond. And being a mother, I know that that's not true because you bond with your baby when you're pregnant. So I thought, okay, this guy has no empathy along that line. So then I said, so, and then what do you do when the cows can no longer produce milk? And he said, hamburger. One word. That was all he said. And I said, okay, well, I won't be drinking milk anymore or milk products, and hung up the phone. And that was that. That was the end of it. And eggs went along with it. I don't remember the research I did on eggs, but it went along with it. And by that time I had learned the word vegan. Early on, when I first became a vegetarian, I hadn't heard that word. And when I was vegetarian, I really just knew a few vegetarians, very few. And there were, this is hard for people to believe, but there were very few vegetarian cookbooks, much less vegan cookbooks. So that's kind of the story. I mean, it goes way back, of course. I loved animals as a child, as all children do. And my dad was a hunter of large animals in Africa and Colorado and Alaska and all of that. And so I was surrounded by heads of animals and animals on the floor made into rugs and all that. So it was, and we were in Kansas City, which is a big meat place. All kinds of barbecue and all that is famous for steaks. I don't even like to say the word, and barbecue and all that. And so it was no word I'd ever heard of when I was little, vegetarian. I tried it when I was little, but I didn't know how, and I got really sick because I was just eating donuts. And that.
It sounds like you went vegetarian around 77?
Been more like 75.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, somewhere around in there.
So what prompted that, if you don't mind going that far back?
I had not wanted to eat meat, and I thought that I had to because I got sick living on donuts and Frosted Flakes, white bread rolled into little balls, right? So I just had no nutrition, really. But I didn't want to eat it because I just had this feeling about animals. My mother was a dedicated mother, 5 kids, and she would have a leg of a lamb on the table, a leg of a lamb on the table. And it's like, that means that came from an animal, right? Whereas beef wasn't as obvious, but things like that, and of course chicken and fish, that's an animal. It was very difficult for me, but I didn't know what to do. But in my 20s, I started finding friends who were environmentalists, anti-nuke, and all of that stuff. And we kind of got together and started talking about how do you become vegetarian. And there was an Indian restaurant in Kansas City called the Golden Temple. And there was also a Golden Ox. The Golden Ox was big meat in the slaughterhouse area of downtown Kansas City. The Golden Temple was a vegetarian Indian restaurant. And we learned a lot about how to make the food there. And that was kind of before a lot of the animal rights groups got going and the cookbooks and everything. So,
okay. Yeah. So you were pretty much vegan forward for a very long time prior to going vegan. And then you realized how to actually become vegan. Mm-hmm. And along the way, get healthier and healthier.
Yeah, because vegetarian, what did I do? I thought you got to have protein. I didn't know anything about nutrition. So, I must have to have cheese. I didn't know about tofu. There weren't any natural food stores then. There were vitamin stores. basically. And you could go there and you could get powdered, better than milk, they called it. It was a powder. You could get TVP, textured vegetable protein, but not much else. So I started learning a little bit about nutrition from those stores. Then, think that everything just sort of broke open and we all started learning what to eat, what tofu is, and that there's protein in vegetables and things like that. And I think a lot of vegetarians feel that way too. Well, if I'm not going to eat meat, animals, then I've got to have milk and dairy to substitute for the protein. And so then you end up eating way too much cheese.
You mentioned as a child having all these experiences with animals and seeing the heads and everything, the hunting that your father did. Did you ever see an animal get hurt or killed?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I ever did. He just would bring them home already, with their heads already taxidermied and the rugs and that sort of thing. He was gonna kill some animals that were in our pond. One time we had a pond behind our house. So he had his gun and he was gonna shoot them, muskrats. And I pushed the gun out of the way, which was very dangerous.
Wow.
So I didn't see the muskrats get killed. And then another time I was taking care of the rats for the school for the summer. And of course, 3 rats turned into about 30 rats. And so he was going to kill all of them. So I let them all go. So there's all these white rats running around. Of course, I didn't know they're probably not going to live very long out in the wild, but I didn't want him to kill them. So they escaped. So yeah, I don't think I saw any animals get killed.
But you had it in you that you were already an activist at that age, it sounds like.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's so cool. Are you able to recall a time, what it felt like back then seeing these taxidermied heads? Do you recall ever feeling any certain way about that?
Yeah, it was like death. They were so beautiful, these animals, and that was all that was left of them. And Dad would say, well, that way they didn't get attacked by a lion, and so it was a clean shot, and so it was like a mercy killing or something. And I love my dad, and he was an amazing human being in so many ways, and did a lot of great work for people, a lot of free surgeries and that sort of thing. He was a surgeon. And so that was confusing. How could someone that gifted and concerned about other people do that to animals? And so it was like your head just kind of goes, is it right? Is he doing the right thing to do that? Because he's right in everything else, So it was, I really struggled with that. And it was really, really hard because there was just this, he was kind of well known and did surgery on television sometimes and that sort of thing. So a lot of people, they would see me, oh, you're Fred McCoy's daughter, and you go, wow, he must be really important, So then you think, well, maybe it's right to do that. And of course, he had all these justifications like these hunters do. In one case, he went to Africa allegedly for the museum to kill families of animals, like an elephant pair and a baby, and giraffe pair and baby. The justification was it was for the museum because, and I remember him saying, these animals are all going to disappear, and so what will the children do if they can't see them? And so we're going to kill them and then taxidermy them, and then the children can can see what the animals looked like before they became extinct. And so there was that justification. And then there was also the sense of adventure, you know, like a safari. It sounded so exotic, you know. So you go, there's something cool about that, you know, like he was really brave and, you know, all that. And so trying to process all that in my teenage brain did not go well.
It sounds like you have a huge ethical drive. How did that evolve after going vegan and go from there to now, if you will?
It was kind of pretty much ethics. All the way along, I guess. I remember my brother was learning to hunt ducks with my dad, and he asked me if I wanted to go with him and a friend. And I'm thinking this is an adventure, right? And we're out, and I loved being outdoors and in nature. And we're walking along, sloshing along in waders in the water, and I'm thinking how cool I had this special vest on and everything, and I've got this shotgun in my arm. And then I thought, wait a minute, what are we doing? I was probably 14, but I was kind of, I guess, thinking about the ethics. And I said, what are we doing? And the guys, of course, you know, they had to kill ducks, right? So their dads would be proud of them. And so they said, well, we're going to shoot at these ducks. And I'm going, I'm not doing that. That's why we're here. And I mean, I don't know why I wasn't
realizing
putting together the gun and the walking through the water. But then I said, well, I'm not doing this. So I turned around. I credit these large groups. Before computers, I lived in Warrensburg, Missouri, another place where there's no animal rights going on. We had peace movement and all that good stuff, but no animal rights. This was in the 80s, and no computer. So I heard that they were going to have rat experiments in the grade schools and feed one rat hamburgers and French fries, I think, and the other rat was going to get dairy. And so they were going to prove that the rat getting dairy was going to thrive, and the rat getting the hamburger and the French fries were going to die. They're doing this in front of little grade school children. So I thought, how am I going to stop this? And I called In Defense of Animals, Elliott Katz, on the phone. My daughter was in high school. My kids were in high school. So this was in the 80s. And I call Elliott Katz out of the blue, and I say, what do I do? He gives me a plan. And so I go to, I guess, the leader of all the grade schools, and I propose this, you know, that there's alternatives to this, and what you're really teaching these kids is cruelty to animals is okay. And also that dairy's okay for kids, which it's not. He helped me get through that, and they actually did decide not to do those experiments. They came up with some other experiments that would be more relevant to human health than that. And because, you know, I said, you know, what happens to these rats at the end of the experiments? And the teacher said, well, they just take them away. And I go, yeah, and they euthanize them. And so what are you going to tell the kids? Where did the rats go, you know? So they actually listened, and it worked. So then that led to other things, because I realized I had help in these big groups. And of course, PETA was actually going to different cities and giving classes. And they did one in Kansas City that I went to. And then we moved, and I believe that's when I found People for Animal Rights. And I learned so much from them. And that was a Kansas City group. And in Lawrence, I was doing my own activism to try to educate women about Premarin, that it comes from pregnant mare's urine. That's why they call it Premarin. And so I was just standing on street corners handing out literature and stuff like that by myself. I knew the people at the Humane Society pretty well, and Midge Grinstead was the head of that at that time. And a cat had been tortured, and we wanted that person to be prosecuted. And there wasn't a lot of that happening back then. This was right around 2000 or 1999, somewhere in there. And so I said, well, let's have a big demonstration. And so we got a cat costume and big signs and all kinds of things, and we're downtown. And then I met these two women, Anne and Megan, at this event, and which is one of the wonderful things about demonstrations. You meet these amazing people that actually will take time out of their lives to go and hold signs and yell at people driving by. And so we started talking, and the movie The Witness with Eddie Lama had just come out. It was one of the first documentaries about animal rights. And so they came over to my house and we watched it, and we just went nuts. We're going to show this to every person in the universe, and everyone will go vegan as soon as they watch it. We were sure of it. Yeah. Then we formed a group, Animal Outreach of Kansas, and circus protests and everything you can think of, fur protests and vegan education and films, showing films and all that. It just kind of went from there, and then that group kind of disbanded. Everybody moved to California, I'm pretty sure.
What was the name of that organization?
Yes, it was called Animal Outreach of Kansas. So we had a good long run, and we actually were able to get circuses with wild animals banned from Douglas County. So they can't have performing circuses here anymore that have those, and that was one of our major accomplishments that we were very happy about.
So we have Joanne in the mix over here, off camera with me, and she was the one who introduced me, and she shared so much about you. She was very enthusiastic about sharing who you are, and so I wanted to give her an opportunity to chime in and make sure I covered all the bases here.
You're doing good, so that's why I'm sitting quietly.
Well, I'm just curious, is there anything that she didn't hit on that you think would be important to get out there or nice to hear about?
So what are some of the other things that Animal Outreach worked on?
We did a fur protest downtown, and the man was going to spray us with water, and it was below 30, so it would have frozen on us. And I'm talking about the store owner. And one of the women in our group offered to pay for his fur coats. And they worked out a deal. The police came because we called the police because he was going to spray us with water. They came and they helped work out that deal. And so that was kind of an amazing...
What do you mean they offered to pay for his fur coats?
To get them out of the store and send them back somewhere.
Is that to stop him from doing it further?
It was for him to agree to no longer sell fur. And if he would agree to that, then she would pay to have these coats shipped elsewhere. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the details.
But it worked, he stopped selling them?
Yeah, he did. So although I should probably go in there and check, right? As things change. But we tried to get these elephants to the elephant sanctuary. We went down to the elephant sanctuary. We talked to them about, can you take them? They sent a representative up to talk to the city council, and we actually brought a veterinarian up to say, yes, these elephants are miserable, they need to go to the sanctuary, and nothing worked. And that was a real heartbreaker. But I don't want to discourage anyone that's watching this, because I think there's been a lot of awareness growing, and some of the more open zoos have allowed their elephants to go. So it's definitely worth working on.
So it sounds like, even though your main objective wasn't accomplished, there was a lot of peripheral goals that were accomplished or something like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, we had lots of meetings in Topeka, and just with people, and we had good turnout. So a lot of people in Topeka learned about it, and in fact, In Defense of Animals paid for several billboards they would show the elephants in their little tiny area at the Topeka Zoo, and then next to that was a picture of elephants at the elephant sanctuary. Which one is better for Tembo and Sunda? We got a lot of people educated about these elephants have feelings. They walk many, many miles every day. They don't want to be confined like this, and it injures their feet to be on concrete. They can't lie down comfortably anywhere. They're confined all winter long in the winter quarters because it's a harsh winter. They can't be outside. They're cramped in this little area in a concrete building all winter long. But that particular zoo is just very harsh, hard-nosed, would not. They considered the elephants their biggest draw and a tourist attraction for Topeka. There's not a lot of tourist attractions in Topeka, so they considered that really important. But that's one way I got to know In Defense of Animals. They were amazing. The amount of money they spent on those billboards and sending people to the city council meetings and the wonderful people we met. And I ended up with this Interfaith Vegan Coalition, which I co-founded with someone that works at In Defense of Animals. And so it's under the umbrella of In Defense of Animals. And we started that, I think, maybe 8 years ago or something like that.
And then how did that lead to the work that you did with the interfaith work and you had some kind of online kits for all the different religions that you were creating?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
The Interfaith Vegan Coalition has a website, and it's part of the In Defense of Animals website. One of the resources that we offer are these kits that we got a bunch of people from different religions to write up these kits based on kind of a format that we had, which involved give us some quotes from vegan leaders in your religion, some vegan stories, vegan songs, poems, or at least animal friendly. Then we would also have a list of films that they could show and references to books and talks and all sorts of things like that, so that then someone, let's say, who's Muslim can go to the Muslim kit and say, I feel really alone in my place of worship, and so I'm going to go to this kit and I'm going to make a list of all the things I could do from that kit and the resources that I could use. And then we have brochures that they can use and music and lots of things. And ways to introduce the vegan idea to their place of worship. And one idea is to form a group in that area where, some people who might be sort of sympathetic to the idea, or even people who are interested in going green, sometimes they're more open. And so they'll start a group and use these resources. So those are the kits, and then we have a lot of other projects that we do too. We give out a Homo Ahimsa Award every year for someone who demonstrates the qualities of Homo Ahimsa, which is evolution from Homo sapiens to Homo Ahimsa, to the people that we really are, that we truly are, our true nature, which is kindness, love for all creatures. Yeah, we do lots of different things. Like if there's something like the Golden Rule Day that's online, it goes out to millions of people. It's just a lot of different people who put together a little short video. Most of them are not vegan. And so we always make sure there's several vegan ones that we submit to them. And hopefully the people will watch those and see, so the golden rule should apply to all beings, not just people. And so, yes, we got lots of projects going on.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a great group. And we actually have, I think about 40 group members, because we're a coalition, other members that are also vegan and spiritually oriented, which is amazed us that there were that many when we first got started. And we have meetings every month. And
Your husband, like, is he in the mix with this? Does he help you with all this?
he's in the background.
Okay.
When we have our conference, our retreat at Unity Village, he will be hanging things on the wall.
And then he's been vegan the whole time you've been vegan?
Yes.
Nice.
Right. Yeah.
'Cause, like, sometimes I like to ask people, could you be with somebody who isn't vegan?
I can't imagine it. I know a lot of people who are. It's a struggle. Yeah. It really is. If they've got this person in their life that they love who's vegan, but they can't get that ethical part of it. And it's such a rift. But I know people who've, been together decades and they're doing okay. They're doing okay. But I know it's kind of a heartache.
What was your first book that you wrote?
My first book was The 7 Keys to Joyful Living, which was, I wrote that in the 90s, and I was still like thinking I couldn't like be completely out there about veganism. I was still kind of hanging back a little, so I was just like inching into the idea that all animals are sacred, and if you want to be joyful, then they need to be joyful too. So that was that book. And then I got more bold and I wrote Peace to All Beings. And I called it Veggie Soup for the Chicken Soul to begin with. Introduced that at one of the AR conferences. People just went crazy. They loved that title so much because it was like those chicken soup books, just shove them over. Here's Veggie Soup for the Chicken Soul. Lantern Books, I had self-published it, and Lantern Books wanted to pick it up, and then they decided to change the title. So it's Peace to All Beings, and then the subtitle is Veggie Soup for the Chicken Soul.
Well, why do they want to change such a good title?
He knew the people who did the chicken soup books. And he felt like it was maybe an infringement on their trademark. So he didn't want to end up in a lawsuit or something. But he kept it as a subtitle. That book is still selling, and I kind of mainly wrote it, I think, to keep people hopeful and positive about living a vegan life, that we can create a vegan world. Because I was seeing so much discouragement and people leaving veganism or giving it up or giving up activism. So I wanted to say, there's so much to this. This is so deep, and it's our soul crying out with the animal souls to create a vegan world where there's no more violence coming from Homo sapiens, and the world is full of Homo ahimsa people. Ahimsa means nonviolence, which you probably knew, or non-harm. And I believe that's who we really are. But we've been programmed from day one. You gotta eat meat. Here's this little baby, and you're shoving this mashed up meat into their little tiny mouths. And we're just programmed from the beginning. And we have to let go of all those programs, and down beneath that, all those programs is this beautiful creature called Homo ahimsa that loves the whole world, loves every creature, sees that every creature is sacred and beautiful and worthy of being cared for or left alone or whatever it is they need, and living in harmony with them in whatever way works for them and us. So I kind of wrote that book with that in mind, and there's a lot of prayers in that book. Madeline Tuttle and I started the Circle of Compassion kind of around the same time. We kind of discovered each other at an AR conference in, I think, 2000, somewhere in there. Alex thought we were the only spiritual vegans, I think, because he said, Her shaft.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you guys do the initial blessing? And so Will played the piano and I lit the candles. And that's like, okay, that was the spiritual part.
Yeah, I'm sensing a lot of Will Tuttle here. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
I've interviewed him in his home and Alex in his home.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So cool.
So yeah, so that's where Will and I met. Yeah. And then of course I met Madeline, and I had Circle of Compassion on my checkbook, and Will had Circle of Compassion on something, and we said, I guess we're supposed to start a Circle of Compassion thing. And so we have a website, and we have this prayer, this noon prayer that you know about, and it's translated into, 30 languages or something on the first page. And there's lots of prayers in that website and resources and that sort of thing. That's where Will and I met, and then it was probably 10 years later at the same conference that happens annually that Lisa Levinson and I started the Interfaith Vegan Coalition.
One of the things I've always been impressed with about you is how you would be faced with something in your community and you would just stand up and come up with something really creative and innovative to try to address it. And I'm thinking right now about the time there was that art project. I'm not going to remember all the details. In Lawrence with the chickens. They were going to use live chickens doing something really terrible. And I remember you reaching out to Karen Davis. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
That was such an amazing thing. And it just goes to show, you know, if you just speak up, that something amazing might happen. So I found out that this traveling artist had been given a grant to have chickens in a coop. And so this is an art installation, right? And this is going to be done at this little gallery in town. Then at the end, she was going to kill all the chickens and have chicken dinner for the audience. And of course, I was like, this can't happen. How am I going to stop this? I actually called the city and I said, is this legal? And they said, absolutely not. You cannot kill a chicken in the city limits. Wow. And so I found the artist somehow. And I said, I introduced myself, and I was very nice, and she was also extremely nice and cordial. And I said, I found out from the city that you can't do this, and I wondered if I could help, maybe our group, our animal outreach group, could help turn this around to where it could be pro-chicken, because you're obviously, you know, thinking of chickens as beautiful in some way. This is an art project. So we found some common ground, and she went for it. And so what ended up happening is she had an event on, I think it was a 30-day grant or something like that. And so at the end of the 30 days, during that time, she'd allowed me to find a bunch of artists to bring in and hang up art that was pro-chicken. So there was all these amazing works of art in there. My sister, who's an artist, had done a chicken out of paper and with all these paper feathers that the children could write something nice about chickens and then put the feather on the chicken. And so that was interactive, and there were a lot of other beautiful things. And then on the last day, she had an event and had a bunch of speakers. And I was one, Joanne's daughter, Serena, was one, several other people, all speaking for the chickens, in favor of them and giving people the vegan message, the vegan ethical message. And there was one guy who was a biology professor at KU, and he got up and said, well, coyotes eat chickens, so we can't do. And, but other than him, everyone was totally on board. And so it was a beautiful thing. I mean, it got completely reversed in its purpose. To me, art should be about beauty and sacredness, and that's what it became. So, yeah, that was really a neat event. Yeah.
And so my first memory of animal outreach of Kansas and the kinds of activities you did was actually when you were organizing some events for Earth Day.
Oh.
And so, you know, can you tell us a little bit about how that evolved and what you did?
Yeah. Well, we just decided we were going to feed everybody vegan food at Earth Day, which is a big deal in Lawrence at South Park, which is a beautiful big park. And a lot of people come, and there's all the booths, you know, with environmental things. We set up all these tables and barbecued burgers, veggie burgers, vegan burgers, and then everybody brought all these wonderful dishes. Joanne, of course, brought more than anyone. And then we would stand there and dish it out, and we had all these signs, kind of like realtor signs on those kind of stands, all the way along their pathway. So they're reading all these signs about why not to eat animals, and then they get there, but they still stayed because it was free. It was all free. And and people loved it. And then the next year, the park department said, please come back. And I think we did it 3 or 4 years in a row.
It was a regular thing for a while. I don't remember that.
Yeah, as long as we had, you know, all those people. And then people started, like I said, leaving for California and New York, where there's more vegan restaurants and stuff and activities. But so we weren't getting enough people. You know, it took a lot of people to do that, to pull that off. And so then Joanne and I started doing just a table with snacks. And that was another place where Michael was in the background eating the snacks. But setting up the arbors and all those things. So, and Joe does that too. So they're the behind the scenes guys.
And they make sure that all the food tastes good before we serve it to anybody.
Right.
Now, do you think he would have been able to be vegan without you in the mix?
Well, he was vegetarian when I met him. Yeah, because he had been in chiropractic college. So he was learning about nutrition. And so he had decided to go vegetarian for that reason. The ethical thing is interesting because in the beginning, at least back then, no one was really talking about that in the Midwest so much. Just a rare few. And I didn't know Joanne. She would have been, you know, telling me all about it if I had known her then. But so it was kind of learning, you know, the hard way. There wasn't that much literature. There was no computers, So I don't think he'd really thought about the ethics so much. But that's where I was at. And so then, but once I got the ethical piece kind of put together and understood it, he didn't hesitate. That's a very great blessing because that doesn't happen with every couple.
What about like family or friends? Have you been influential and effective at helping anybody else?
I wish I could say yes. My ex-husband, my children's father, is a huge meat eater, and they were kind of raised both ways. That has made it difficult for them, I think. My siblings, I have one sibling who's vegan, which is wonderful. Awesome. The others, 2 of them were chefs. And so, you know, that's kind of hard to say, oh, all that stuff I've been cooking all my life, you know, my adult life is cruel. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard. So yeah, I can't say. Friends, yes, but not so much family. Got a pretty stubborn, you know, old Kansas farm stock.
Yeah. Were you influential on the one sibling that did go vegan?
No.
She did it on her own?
Yeah, we were kind of close. She's been environmentalist, so we were kind of along the same track, yeah.
So as far as friends, Is there anything that you've learned along the way that's like been a lesson to influencing others, like that you might want to share?
I think the most important thing to remember is to listen, to find common ground. Because if you just start spouting out information and they're not ready to hear it, then it's not going to go anywhere. But if you wait until you get a little bit of knowledge about who they are and where they are in their journey, then you can approach it, from that angle. And it may be health rather than ethics. I've had people say to me, well, I don't really like animals that much. And if they're in that space, then the ethical argument has to be, geared in that way. I think listening is the most important thing.
Is there a way to actively engage people in this effort, or do you just kind of wait for them to show a sign of interest?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're out on the street corner, then there's lots of opportunities. I used to show videos before they were doing the cube thing. I had a TV with a battery that powered the TV. And every single Friday night we would be there. Oh, we'd get so many conversations going, and really good conversations. And those you don't know. You planted a seed, but you don't know if it's going to sprout or not, or if they're going to hear it from someone else, and then someone else, and all that. So that, leads to lots of conversations. But in social situations, you kind of have to gauge, wait for some topic to come up that's kind of related, and then try to introduce something and see, is anybody going to bite on this, or is everybody going to totally change the subject immediately or walk out of the room or what? Look at people as, the word namaste. I see this, the spirit in me sees the spirit in you. And if you can remember that and look at someone and say, I see the spirit in that person, my spirit sees. And then know that love is in there. And no matter what they're talking about, if they're, talking about, oh yeah, I just went and killed a bunch of turkeys. And you're going, okay, how am I going to get, to have a conversation with this guy? But you got to let that go and go, I see the spirit in that person. And that there is love there.
Like one day I started looking at the most annoying people, like the worst driver or the most rude person, and think, at some point they were the most innocent, sweet little child.
Yeah, right. It's good because, they were innocent little babies, and their mothers loved them and their daddies loved them. That little child's still in there. Yeah, wanting to be loved themselves. And that's another really important thing to remember, is that they want to be loved. They want to be respected and cared about. And if you just jump on them with, hey, you're doing the wrong thing, it doesn't work. Yeah. And I really I love the way Will talks about it. He talks about how I used to eat meat. But then I found out what happened to the animals. And now I'm so happy. That's kind of what he says a lot. And now I'm so happy because I feel better. I know I'm not harming any animals. And I think that's a really good thing to say too, especially if you don't have a lot of time. And many times you don't have time. You just have a little sliver of time to get something in. Like I was with somebody and she was saying, it was something really bad about snails. And I said, you know what? I find out when I'm walking on my walks, if there's a snail in the road, I'll pick that snail up. And they're amazing. They'll like stick their little eyes out to look at you. And you just go, oh my gosh, this beautiful little creature. And then you set them in the grass so they're not going to be run over. and just get this feeling of connection. And she kind of went, like that, like never thought about that. A snail is a nothing to a lot of people. So we can do little things like that. It doesn't have to be about eating vegan, you know. It can be just a little thing about a tiny little creature. Or you're in somebody's house and there's a fly in there, and you get a cup and you catch the fly and take the fly out, and you don't have to say a word. They're going, that's so weird.
Earlier you mentioned that you know a few people maybe that have gone vegan and then went away from it. What do you think's going on there?
I don't know. I mean, you have to talk about each individual, but I think some of them, the social pressure, I would say 90% would be social pressure. It's humongous. It is just intense. If you're in a community of people who eat meat and you don't know any vegans, it's hard. So people have got to find vegan friends. I mean, it's just critical. And even if they're online friends on Zoom calls, support line, there's a support line at In Defense of Animals you can actually call, and somebody will talk to you if you're going through something like that. And there's other groups that have that too. And lots of groups that have, you know, hey, 30-day challenges, you know, and we'll walk you through this. And so those things you got to be if you're vegan and you want to stay vegan and you're feeling all this pressure, you're going to have to be proactive and look around for support. Reading books, watching videos is helpful, but human interaction with other vegans is really, really important.
Excellent. Now, did you think of a quote maybe that relates to this?
Keep thinking of Leo Tolstoy, something like, the world will never have peace as long as there are slaughterhouses.
Bernard, that wasn't a George Bernard Shaw, that was definitely Tolstoy.
Yes, but the thing is, there's so many like Shaw that are saying the same thing, and Charles Fillmore said the same thing. It was much wordier. As long as people are murdering animals, we can't have world peace. Yeah, in fact, I even have on my website, I have a section of quotes on that.
Nice. So what's your website?
It's peacetoallbeings.com.
Okay. Well, what's funny about that?
I started to go, what is it?
Okay. And it's all spelled out.
Yes,
just like
it's all spelled out. Yeah.
Nice.
And you've done a lot of work supporting what Silas Rao is doing in Vegan World 2026. And you were the one who introduced me to his work. How did you first find out about that?
I think it was when Silas came here to Lawrence.
I thought you brought him here.
Maybe I did.
Is that Climate Healers now, or is it still,
Climate Healers.
It's not Vegan World 2026 anymore?
Well, he still got that on there.
Okay.
But that was what drew me. I'm going, that's what I needed, a deadline.
It might be hard for people to imagine why anybody would call it that. I think maybe it's just normalizing it by then.
Yes.
I think we're on track for most people knowing what this means, you know.
I do too.
And maybe meeting that goal in that way.
I do too. But I do believe, and I think Silas does too, that we are in a spiritual revolution that's happening right now in ways that are beyond our comprehension. The peace that passes all understanding, you know, those sorts of things that are beyond good and evil thinking. There's something happening in the spiritual realm that is helping us. And I think more people are feeling that boost, that, hey, we can do this, because if you look at the news, you're not going to feel like that. It's like...
That's what the news doesn't want you to feel like.
Yeah, no, it's all about fear. It's always been about fear, but now it's even more about fear. If you want to be afraid, go watch the news, and plenty of stuff online too. The dire things that are going to happen and the end of the world and all these things. The spiritual aspect of it, for me and many others, I think, is that we are spiritual beings. That this material world is just a very tiny part of our lives.
It sounds like a Sting song or something.
What is it?
We
Material
are
Girl?
In a material.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe he was kind of picking up on that. There's something happening, and it's like a spiritual warfare in a way, because the more I sense this revolution going on, or awakening, or whatever you want to call it, the more things ramp up from the World Economic Forum and all of Bill Gates and all these terrible things that they're doing or trying to do. And we're like over here going, that can't happen, because love overcomes fear. And love is always going to win. And Gandhi is so great about explaining that. Yeah, Gandhi has this wonderful quote. I have it on my refrigerator. I could go get it. But he's basically saying that the bad guys are always around. They appear to be bad. He didn't consider anyone his enemy. But he said, but they always fall. And just hold on to that truth, that love will always win out. And I really believe that, and I've lived a long time, and I've never seen the situation, the direness of the situation that we're in right now, as far as the environment and the number of animals that are killed, the amount of violence and the number of wars that are going on. It's just incredibly traumatic.
Unprecedented tension.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and anxiety, free-floating anxiety in people that don't know what to do, and so there's lots of drugs and distractions to try to calm people down, to get away from all the stress and tension. And I think a lot of the suicides and drugs and all of that are the extreme end. What are we doing here, We're not going to make it. It's obviously all these big companies, big government agencies are all telling us, it's almost over. We've got this other aspect that we are spiritual beings, and this is just the little material world. And so whatever that means, whether we can actually evolve spiritually fast enough to come up with free energy and all the things that we're going to need to do and create a vegan world, or whether it means that we go on spiritually and, to another realm or another way of living or something. I have no idea, but I know that love will win out in the end in some way that we can't quite comprehend right now.
As in tune as you are with the cosmos and everything that's going on, how do you stay positive in such a sick world? It sounds like you've kind of answered that question by just knowing that love will prevail.
Yeah. Well, meditation is pretty key. We've got to spend time in the silence and letting all those programs go, letting all those thoughts and fears go, and just being with the Christ spirit, the Buddha nature, whatever it is for you that is your place of peace. And so then you go, okay, it's all okay.
Right after you and Michael got together, you weren't living like this.
Right.
You were living down in the Ozarks in a teepee, right?
Oh,
Tell us
wow.
about that.
Yeah, interesting.
It was part of the whole environmental thing. I was really big into anti-nuke stuff and all of that. And so, well, why don't we just show people you can live off the grid? That was pretty naive, because nobody really wants to do that. But we built a teepee, a 3-story teepee. So it was 30 feet in diameter and had 3 floors and windows and a solar garden on one side of it and a front door. We built it in southern Missouri where you could build things like that and nobody could say anything. Like we charged a battery, an extra battery when we went to town, and we could run a little radio and a light. This was in the early 80s, yeah. Still no computers, right? No cell phones or anything. And speaking of that, it was incredible. We had an article in Mother Earth News about it, and people came from all over the place. And I don't know how they found us, because we didn't have cell phones or anything like that, or GPSs, but people found us. They wanted to see this. And so we had an outdoor solar shower. And
were you on the cover of Mother Earth News?
no,
you weren't on
it
the
just
cover.
said
It was inside.
3-story steepy on the front, and then yeah. So it's in the magazine. Do you know what a hydraulic ram is? We rammed water up from the creek, which was 200 feet below, with 2 hydraulic rams. And it took 2 to get the water up to the top of the hill. And then we stored it in an old milk tank and on a tower. And so that was our water source, except for drinking water. We went down the road to a friend and got her water. So you cheat a lot when you're trying to do this. And then the soil is horrible there. There's hardly any. Made a garden and built up the soil with leaves and manure and stuff like that. And we don't use manure now because we grow organic or veganically, but then we're still doing that. And
How long did you do that?
3 years.
Okay.
And we built a house while we were living in the teepee. It was going to be all solar and with a wood stove and all that. We weren't quite able to do that. Society kind of came in on us, and so that had to come to a close. But it was a great experiment, and very interesting because now a lot of people are getting interested in how would you do that? Like if the infrastructure went down, what would you do? And we kind of would know what to do. Everybody could just come here. And this is our gong. Michael built this out of a scuba tank.
Whoa. Nice.
Isn't that nice?
That's 432 hertz, isn't it?
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. There's our hummingbird feeder.
Yeah, I saw somebody out on it earlier.
And then we've got lots of flowers, and my mother's lilies, those orange lilies down there, we've kept in the family for 3 generations. Yeah, so my daughter will get those.
You hear that water, and
we got a little waterfall.
looks like a pond way over there in the distance.
Yeah, that's our lily pond.
So this boardwalk is going to...
This is going to our bedroom.
It's so wild, having a bedroom somewhere separate from the rest of the living quarters.
Yeah.
That's such a perfect way to be too, I bet.
It is. It's so nice to be away from the noise of the fridge and the freezer and all those
frequencies.
noises. Yeah. And so, here all you hear is the frogs and the crickets, and
I've never seen this idea, and I love it. I think I'm going to have to make it happen somehow one day.
Okay.
I love this so much.
Yeah. Well, and we've got windows on everywhere except on the west. And so we've got this wonderful breeze blowing through, and we don't need an air conditioner at all in here in the summertime. But we do need a little heater in the winter because it does get a little chilly. I just love it. I think it's the best bedroom in the world.
And was this like this when you bought the place?
No. We built it with our grandkids as just a fun tree house to begin with. And then they got older. They didn't want to come visit us that much and play in the treehouse because they became teenagers. And so we thought, well, why don't we turn it into a bedroom that we can use all year round? So we sheetrocked it and got it all set up to do that. Yeah, we just really, really like it.
So pleasant.
This is a great day. It really is.
Look at those ginormous lily pads.
Some of them are just huge.
Wow.
And I think flowers have kind of closed up a little.
I see a couple sticking up to here and there. Oh, they're so pretty too. Is this safe to stand on?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I like to sit here
Meditate?
a little bit every day. But yeah, the flowers, they're open in the morning and then they start to close up, but that one's it's almost half open, that little yellow one. Some pink ones over there.
And I guess you can hear the frogs and stuff while you're in your bedroom?
Yeah. It's just, it's the most heavenly chorus. It really is wonderful.
I bet.
We just love it. It's just
it's everything
so
you need.
quiet and peaceful here. You can hear the birds.
And then you got that tall, what is that called?
Cattails.
Cattails, okay. And you got a little something over there going on. What is that? A little house thing over there?
Well, that was a pump house.
Oh, okay.
And we had a fountain, but it didn't work very well. So
Yeah, those are tricky.
we quit using that. So
Is there like turtles in here and fish?
we have watched, it was last summer, I think, a big old snapping turtle. And he's walking down our driveway and he walks right by the St. Francis statue and he just keeps going. He's heading right for this pond and then he just dives in. And we looked it up online and he was about this big around, and so he was about 25 years old. According to what we found.
He might still be here hanging out somewhere, right?
I would not be surprised, because I did see one in the creek over there about a month ago.
Okay, so there's a creek over there too.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
We are very, very blessed. This is just a little piece of heaven.
I could see why you haven't moved in a long time. You said you're surprised you've been here so long.
I know, yeah, but we look at other places and go, but this is better. So we haven't found anything we like more.
You got a little fire pit right here. A little hangout right here.
Yeah.
Some nice shady areas.
These lilies are gonna just bust out very soon.
What color are they?
Those will be orange. Those are tiger lilies.
Okay, yeah, we have some of those too. Uh-oh, that's not poison ivy, is it?
That is not.
Okay, Virginia creeper maybe?
Yeah. There's some poison ivy right there.
Uh-oh, don't let Joanne see.
No.
And a little pond. And a nice little shady area.
Yeah, they like to sit on that little raft.
The frogs? Oh man. And it says Ahimsa Acres.
Yeah, it does here too. Yeah, my last book that I wrote is called Who We Really Are and How We're Gonna Save the World.
So peaceful under here. It feels so good too.
I know. You've got little chores to do, but you go, I kind of like sitting here and just listening to the water. It's just so great. I mean,
like-minded people nearby?
Well, yes. And I was at the graduation dinner for my granddaughter. We were the only two vegans there, and it's hard. I mean, we just don't do that often, be around that many people ordering big steaks and stuff, and it just, where that came from, and that it came from someone that wanted to live it, and they don't know you're thinking that. And there's no point in bringing it up at a meal like that, because everybody's joking around and you don't want to spoil it for your granddaughter and all of that. And that's the kind of thing, when we were talking earlier about what makes vegans leave, that's one of the things. It makes you feel so lonely. Yeah, it's hard, but then it's okay. We've got our vegan friends. We can eat with them. It's all okay. But if you're alone and you just became vegan, you're going, I don't know if this is worth it, because...
Yeah, Dr. Joel Furman, he likes to say you have to be a leader almost to do this. In this day and time, I think that'll change the more and more we normalize it.
Right. And it's getting normalized. I mean, more and more people are going to restaurants and trying vegan options because they think it's healthier, which of course it is, but that's, I think in their minds, they're thinking, oh, tonight I should eat something healthy, so I'll get the vegan. But that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's on the menu. It says a little V, or it says vegan, or maybe vegan option at the top of the menu or something like that. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that's just really a big help for the animals to have that happening.
Did you ever think you would see it this widespread, you know, or did you think it would happen sooner, or did you not see it, or what?
That's a good question. You just kind of go and put your nose to the grindstone and you just, whatever happens, you know, but it is happening faster, I think, than I thought it would. Paramahansa Yogananda said that everyone would be vegetarian by 2050. And of course that's, you know, we got to do it before that. The earth and the animals need us to do it before that. When he was alive, there wasn't much of a vegan movement going on. He loved animals, but he was more talking about spirituality. But he understood, unlike a lot of spiritual leaders, he understood that you can't harm animals and grow spiritually. I mean, it's gonna hold you back as long as you're involved in violence, basically. Yeah.
Prayer that you mentioned earlier that Will does too, and that's usually around noon, right?
Right.
Yeah, you missed it today, right?
Yes, I have a tendency to do that. He has a little thing on his phone, so if we're with him, we always remember.
How long is that? Is that kind of quick?
Compassion encircles the earth for all beings everywhere.
Okay, and that's all, you just do that every day at around noon?
And if you forget, you can do it anytime. It still works.
So let's do it one more time.
Compassion encircles the earth for all beings everywhere.